Holly Carlson is back for a second part of her interview, and I think you'll find it fascinating. We talk about her time in the Western United States when she was the commanding officer there in Scientology. Also, when she went to the flagship Apollo and saw L. Ron Hubbard for the first time, and she was involved and there when the Apollo was actually attacked by a mob throwing stones, calling the Apollo and Scientology and the Sea Organization people CIA, and they had to leave. It's the famous Madiera Rock Festival, and Holly was there and talks about her experiences on that. Anyway, we're continuing with our series. Holly's a great person. She rose to the top in Scientology, in management, and then eventually left in 1982-83 along with her husband and her children, and she is no longer a Scientologist or Sea Org member, but we're having fun telling the stories about the history and then also about the abuses, because there were abuses that occurred to her and her children, which we are covering as well. At any rate, here is part 2 of Holly Carlson. We hope you find the video informative. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm here with my co-host, Janice Gillum-Grady. How you doing today, Janice?
I'm doing good, Mark, and g'day, everybody, and welcome back to another one of our stories on the history of Scientology.
Yeah, and we've had really great weather here. It's still getting a little bit warmer, but I called you earlier today. You were doing some laps in your pool, weren't you?
Yes, I was doing laps. I do about 50 to 60 a day, so I got them in today before this show.
Yeah, and you're also getting your tan too, because you get pretty
dark.
Yeah,
I'm getting my tan. Yeah, we have photos of our family where I'm so tanned, and Paul and the kids are like lily white. It's like.
Well, I remember you, Janice, how tan you got when you were riding the riding lawnmower around the Gilman Hot Springs secret base, cutting the grass.
Oh, yeah, I did that in a bikini.
I know.
I got the best content.
Well, that's good. I hope you're taking, you're protecting your skin. I'm sure you do. You're very nutrition oriented and all that. But
yeah.
Anyway, we've got a great guest, a returning guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our wonderful guest?
Yes, our returning guest she's got management experience, and we've already done one interview with her early days in the Sea Org, and we're bringing back Holly Carlson.
Hi, Holly. I'm going to put you down here. There you go. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and you?
Doing great. How's the weather in Florida? You don't have all this crazy stuff happening.
It's pretty hot, but it's not too humid yet. So we're in the low 90s. The morning started out at 79 degrees. So that was at about 7 o'clock.
Well, we were at 77 this morning, and we'll be 95 this afternoon.
Well, very similar.
There's no humidity. So literally it feels great, very dry.
A little bit of humidity here, but I know it gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I went horse riding this morning at 6 o'clock to beat the heat, and by the time we came back, I think it was like close to 100.
Oh, wow! Yeah, but it's a dry heat, so that's what we used to say when we lived in Tucson. But it's a dry heat.
Exactly.
Yeah, you understand exactly. I loved your house in Tucson. I've told you that a million times.
Oh, anyway. Thank you.
I used to, when we first came to Nevada, I got a T-shirt of 2 skeletons laying out on sunny deck chairs, and it said, "It's dry heat."
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Well, I'll reorient everybody so we can get started back on your story. Where we ended off on the last interview, you were out in Los Angeles in the Sea Organization after getting in Scientology in Buffalo, New York at a mission. And you talked about the abuse that you went through at that mission, and you joined the Sea Organization. And then you talked about how you did mission school where you learned how to, go in and handle situations, and that you found basically this is something you could do and be really good at, right?
Yeah, I did. It was funny that the reason I was put into mission school was I was supposed to go on this mission to the ASHO, straighten out the ASHO CF, which had tens of thousands, and I couldn't even tell you how many. Yes.
ASHO is the American Scientology Organization, and CF is
Oh,
Central
sorry.
Files.
Sorry.
Yeah, I
try to
forgot to tell
remember
you again. Yeah, just try not to use abbreviations, but we'll
The
correct you.
central files of American Scientology Organization, where they had just tens of thousands of folders. And in fact, somebody just today or the other day told me that they are still getting flyers or letters out of that. Like
They're still in the mailing
once
list.
in the system, you're never out of the system. Anyway,
Well,
the mission I was supposed to do was to go sort that all out, it was a total mess. And thank God I didn't, because I think I did talk about this last time. There was a gal that ended up doing that instead of me, and she was in it for years trying to sort it all out. And, no, that would not have been fun. Instead, though, when I came out of that, I was put into the Programs Bureau, and Ron Gablehouse was in charge of that. By that time, Wally Burgess was our commanding officer, and everything had been shifted from any of the old CLO, the Continental Liaison Office, as it was called, to the Flag Operations Liaison Office. And so we were pretty much converted over to that. And not a lot changed in terms of the rest of the so-called bureaus, but this Programs Bureau was the new thing. And
right.
as previously had just been operated by, that function had just been done by Harriet Foster and Laura Wolf, calling all the orgs, And now we have a Programs Bureau, and we had a Southwest, a Northwest, pubs, which was Peter Cook, and I did Sea Org. There might have been another one in there somehow. And of the Sea Org ones, there were the two American St. Hills, the Day Org and the Foundation, and the Advanced Organization and the Celebrity Center.
Right.
What am I missing, Janice?
No, you got it pretty good.
Did you have the ships?
I'm sorry?
Did you have like Baja and Excal?
I don't know how those were done. No, I don't think so. And I don't know how those were taken care of after. They might have been sold off or something. I think we still had, let's see, I was still in the Data Bureau when after I'd married Tom and I was pregnant with Jennifer. I was still in the Data Bureau. I hadn't done programs yet. When I got to be the programs chief, Jennifer was born, and I had her on post with me. So there I was doing my work, and she's in a little cardboard box next to my desk. What was I going to do? She had to be nursed, I mean, I had to feed her, and there was no nursery then.
And a cardboard box, huh?
Well, that was high living.
That's like having
money for a crib.
Yeah, that's like a cat having kittens, and you put them in a cardboard box.
Anyway,
that was the way it was.
A bunch of little blankies in there, so it was plenty soft and everything.
Yeah.
Everybody got used to it. She was our little mascot for a while.
Holly, how many people had kids at that time? Do you remember, or was it just a
handful? No, it was
a
handful. I mean,
okay.
Jennifer was the firstborn there, and then remember Dan and Laura Feely came, and they brought a little boy with them, and he might not have been the first in the nursery with Jennifer, but he was one of the first I remember going in there. And then Bobby and Elena Dubois they became pregnant and had a little child there. So it wasn't a lot. There was somebody named Jan something, and she
Barthol?
had Jan
Barthol. She had 2 kids.
don't remember that name. The Jan I'm thinking of, sadly, her baby was pretty handicapped. It had
okay,
missing limbs and things. Sands or something, I don't remember, but and it began to grow from there. Once they were permitted, it was
right.
grow. That becomes a story again later in my story.
Okay.
The feature in my story later on with the children, and I know it continued to be an issue.
Yeah, but
I was gone.
An interesting thing I found after I left the Sea Org, that people have baby showers, and there was no baby showers for any of the Sea Org members that had babies.
No,
no. So you had to scrape together whatever you could, or people would do hand-me-downs and so forth. But no one would say, "Hey, let me throw a baby shower for you." Just didn't happen.
I can tell you this, for each of my children, in order to have supplies for them, we had very little money at all. And I remember going to Kmart and I spent $40, and that was diapers, blankets, baby bottles, onesies.
Wasn't this before disposable diapers?
No, they did have them, but those were expensive for one thing. And right. Her skin reacted to the plastic, and so I didn't use them. I used cloth.
Okay.
And washed them and all that.
With the plastic panties over the top of the diapers.
Yeah, there were Pampers, I guess they were called, but she couldn't use them. We used them later.
Yeah, and just for our viewers to understand, this is the early 1970s, okay? Holly got into Scientology as a teenager. Janice was born into it, so she had no point of reference outside of Scientology. And I never had kids. I got in when I was 13, 14 years old. So we didn't know, like when Janice goes, oh, they had baby showers. That was a completely foreign subject to us because that didn't exist in Scientology and the Sea organization,
We didn't
I
have
just want to make that clear for our viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have it, Mark. And, that's news to me that you were in that early. I didn't know you were in when you were 13.
Yeah, in Scientology in Washington, D.C. at the founding church, I didn't join the Sea Org till I graduated high school, but, 17. Yeah, I was 17 when I joined the Sea Org. Yeah. Anyway, so so you're in data, and then you went into programs. How did you become the commanding officer of Western United States? And just so our viewers know, the way they delineated Western U.S. from Eastern was the Mississippi River. Am I right?
It was. St. Louis was our westernmost org, and Vancouver, not westernmost, easternmost, and St. Louis was, and then Vancouver was our northern and westernmost, I guess. Well, no, we had Hawaii.
I was going to say, you probably had Hawaii too.
Yeah, we had Hawaii. I remember those are the days for the people who are so much younger, that there was a cable under the ocean. You did not have satellites. That didn't exist.
Right.
Cable under the ocean. And there was a lag of about 10 seconds between every sentence. It would have to travel out there, and you'd have to wait.
When you sent a message.
Travel back. Yeah. So it was fun trying to have a conversation with anybody out in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I wanted to mention, you had said the Flag Operations Liaison Office, and I wanted to mention that's, as Scientology does, everything gets abbreviated, and so that was actually called FOLO. Mm-hmm. So if you hear the mention of FOLO West US, that's the Flag Operations Liaison Office, Western United States.
Yeah.
And so just so people understand that.
Yeah, all that means for the truly uninitiated. And I actually have friends who have watched this who go, I don't understand a lot of it, but it just means that you're getting orders from over you, in an organization further away, and that you're getting programs to implement at your level. It's just echelons like that.
Yeah.
And
it's like having a home office it's like having a home office and they send it down to the.
Yeah, and they send the orders down
Right.
and you farm them out to the people beneath you. And
But-
so we had, I don't remember exactly. I always, just because I never did count them one for one, I think we had about 35 orgs out there that
That's right.
I became responsible for. And that was daunting I would think I was 23 years old.
Mhm.
You know how many years ago that
Right.
was? Don't ask. So,
I know.
Yeah.
But let me.
I don't know. But yeah, so here's how I became CEO.
Okay.
Grump's Gable House was, well, hang on. Is that it? He must have gone to Flag. By that time, we moved from the old USLO building, 811 Beacon Street. We moved to the Champs-Élysées, and we were in
The manor.
the
The
manor,
manor.
what everybody calls the
Which
manor.
is now the Celebrity Center. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it was called the Manor. And we had our office on the first floor and then as the programs bureau. And then we were moved down into the basement. And Ray Thacker was down the hall as the flag rep for the US. And then there was, yep.
Let me bring up what flag is.
Oh,
Because
yeah, good idea. Flag operations.
because
liaison, a
flag
rep.
up, right. Flag
Flag's
is actually the name of the ship that the Commodore was on. So when I joined the Sea Org in January 68, Hubbard was on the Avon River. So the Avon River was referenced to as Flag. And then in May of 68, he transferred over to the Royal Scotsman, later the Apollo. And so then that ship became Flag. And Flag is where International Scientology Management ended up being located. And they were like the home office, and they would send the orders of the programs down to the Flag Operations Liaison offices, where there were the programs chiefs to execute those programs.
Right.
Yeah, Janice, that's a photo of the Apollo right there, right?
Yes, the white ship in the background.
Yeah, and that's where Hubbard and his wife Mary Sue, they lived and worked as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Holly, go ahead.
No, sorry. That was very good. That was very helpful to everybody, I'm sure. Yeah, so we always called it Flag. But, I'm sorry, Mark, you asked a question and I didn't hear it.
No. I was going to say you were in the manor of the Chateau Élysée.
Yeah, we were there, and Flag sent down Jeanette Barnes on mission to take over for Wally. I don't know where Wally was going or why he left. I don't remember. If I might have known something then, I don't remember. But she came down, and she was this gorgeous young blonde Swedish gal, and she was so cute. And she came down, and she was probably for a couple months. She was our temporary CO. And then she said, well, you're going to be the CO, and I'm sending you to Flag. So I got sent to the Apollo. And the Apollo at that time was in the Canary Islands. I don't remember which island that I started off on, but we traveled on to several of them. When I arrived, I think it was, who was the data aid guy?
Dave Engelhardt?
No, that was a long time later.
Brian Charleston?
Brian Charlton. He was in Data Bureau, but he was the guy, he was port captain or something, whatever it was that comes and collects people. Your folks should know that everything was very secret. Nobody could know what this ship was, who was coming and going to it. It was all hush hush. When I went there, nobody would have known where I was going from my home.
Which is what my question was going to be. What was it like traveling to the Canary Islands, not knowing where you were going? And then you see the Apollo, which you know, L. Ron Hubbard, that's his home. What was that like for you as you're in your early 20s?
I'm sorry, Freeway knows that something's happening outside. So
Freeway is Holly's dog.
He's my little Japanese guard dog. Sorry, guys. it's probably an Amazon delivery or something that happens.
Well, at least it's not wine.
No,
Like Sandy Hallman had a wine delivery in the middle of one of our interviews. I think we told you that.
oh no wine gets delivered here. No.
Okay.
So, yeah. So first of all, it was all very. I guess it was interesting to me, of course, because it was all new. I mean, I had been to the UK that one day where I got locked in the hotel.
Right.
Right. The flight to freedom.
Freedom back in 68 or whatever that was. And so this would have been 73, I guess. 72, 73, 74.
That's my dog.
74. Okay.
Because, like I said before, yeah, I was born in 1950,
yes.
So now you know. And
because you were SO programs ops in 73 when I first met you on my first trip to Celebrity Center.
Right. And by the end of the year, I would have turned 24, I guess. And
okay.
Yeah. So it was 74 that I made this trip to Flag for the training. And I landed in Lisbon, and Brian came to greet me and took me for espresso coffee. I'd never had anything like that. And so here I am in a foreign land with people speaking a foreign language, and I don't know anything. I still remember only probably one word of Portuguese, but yeah. And so he escorted me to the ship somehow, and I don't even remember how we did that. And then I was put to work apprenticing under the data aid, and then the programs bureau, and under Kerry. Kerry was the CO.
Kerry Gleason, yeah.
Flag bureau. So he was the head of the management, the senior management. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. I know. What was it like though? Do you remember what it was like when you saw the ship, or when you first went on it? And was Hubbard on the ship? Like, did you meet Hubbard? He was
on. I did not get to meet him then. He was on the ship. The exciting things happened during my trip there, but not yet. But he was there, and I knew he was there, and there were messages running around, and there were a lot of people on the decks and doing things. That was all new to me, and I just followed orders. I had, a little familiarity from having been on the Bolivar and the Excal when I was married to Tom Lovely, and he had been sent to the Excalibur as the qualsec or fourth mate on the Excalibur. So he was doing that kind of work, and which was another thing, is that they didn't have any compunction about splitting up marriages. So I wouldn't get to see him for months on. If I got a liberty, which was, a day off, for those who don't know what the liberty means, then I might be able to get out to the Excalibur, which was one of our ships out in Pack, and see him. So I had some familiarity with ship life, but the Apollo was a lot bigger than either the Bolivar or the Excalibur. And I was assigned a bunk in the aft well deck below that, and it was awful. It was horrible.
Below the aft lounge in the woman's dorm.
Exactly.
C deck.
Yeah. Well, it was. I'd already been exposed to weird things, like I had to sleep on a wet mattress the first day in the USOO, sleeping back in 71, but on the ship on the Apollo. It's cramped quarters. It's dark. Yep. Figuring out where to put my things was difficult. I'm wedged in, and you have maybe this much room to slide into your bunk.
And you only have under the bunk, the 3 rows of bunks, you only have under the bunks to put a suitcase, or there's the racks over those other beds. But there was no room for anything. Actually, it was D deck. The dorms were D deck, not C.
Yeah, I don't even remember all the names of everything, but that aft well deck is where the troop would practice their music during the night when I'm supposed to be sleeping. to be
Tell everybody who the troop is, Janice.
to be sessionable. So for the
Right.
initiative, you're supposed to have enough sleep so that when you go in to get your counseling, you're alert and you can focus on what you're getting counseled about.
Right. Well, yeah, let me
I
just
remember one
explain.
time it was Lori Englehart singing, and she had this belting voice singing. Who's the Wayne Newton? Some Wayne Newton song that if I think about it, it'll be in my head for the next 48 hours. So I don't
Sean.
Anyway, so she's belting away, and the other people are, playing their music and stuff. I went stumbling up there one night, going, "I have to be sessionable tomorrow. Do you think you can keep it down a little bit?" And it's like, look at me like.
Janice, explain what the troop is.
Well, the troopers, we had several different bands on board, and I'll cover the bands and the breakdown of them in a different video.
These are musical groups.
These are musical groups that were started, and we had like the Apollo Stars, and we had the Troubadours, and it's like, and we had Paco doing Flamingo, and we had Tashira. So it's like 4 different things going on, and in different sections of the ship, because you can't all be practicing together because the music wouldn't blend.
Why not? I mean, right. So that was an interesting part of it. And then, I didn't really visit the islands much. To get back to answering your question, I was busy training. So
right.
I think I might have got off the ship once or twice. It wasn't a highlight of my visit there because meanwhile, I'm missing my little child. I've got a daughter who's a year old, and I've been ripped away from her. 4 months is a very long time for a new mother to be away from her child. And so that was hard. But Tom did send me some photos, and I just cherish those. But I apprenticed under John Horwich in the Action Bureau, which was really interesting. And he's an interesting guy, too. He was. And I think, I'm trying to remember, was anybody else in there with him, or was it just me? Because I apprenticed with him again later, or I worked under him again later when I was in Clearwater. But anyway, so I did a stint with him, a stint with Carrie, running around, a stint in Data Bureau, and a stint in what did I say? Programs? Yeah, programs.
Yeah.
Doing up evals for evaluations on the different orgs. I remember doing the one on Las Vegas. And I was very proud of it. I mean, I got one reject in the one from Hubbard. Your evaluation goes up to Hubbard. He reads it and makes his critiques and stuff. Well, he wrote me one critique about the advanced payments not matching the amount of delivery being done, and said, well, this discrepancy needs to be dealt with. And so I dug in on that, and my evaluation went right up and got approved. And some of the other program chiefs were not pleased to see that this newbie kid was able to do this.
Jealousy.
Yeah, there was that. But anyhow, whatever.
Holly, do you remember seeing Hubbard? Like, even if you didn't meet him or talk to him, like, could you see him on the ship?
Let me get to that. Give me a second.
Sorry.
To get to that. I just want to wrap up what I had done. Some of the other highlights. I was in touch with him because I wrote DRs.
Daily reports.
Daily reports. I wrote daily reports to him. And just like if you were out in the field and you wanted to write a letter to Ron, it was called the
SO1.
Standing order number 1.
Standing order number 1?
Standing order number 1. Yeah.
So just like that, and he would read them. And he did read them. So one day I wrote to him, I had gotten wind that somebody, I think it was Carrie, had done an evaluation on my FOLO and was going to send me back there as the deputy CO. That would have meant I would have been in charge of collections and blown people's ethics situations and stuff like that, and making internal money and dealing with estates and birthing people and finding places for people to sleep and whatever, recruitment and stuff like that. Well, I had always worked directly with the organizations and worked on external management stuff, and I wanted to do that. I certainly didn't want to go. Even though I was just this little girl, I knew the external stuff better than the internal stuff, and I did not want to do the internal. I wrote a letter to Hubbard, the Daily, and I said, I see that this evaluation has got me, blah, 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 and I don't want to do that at all, And I know the external stuff, and that's my passion, and I'll be good at it. Blah, blah, get this whole sort of what we used to call completed staff work, petition. Yeah. And he wrote back a reject on Carrie's eval, and he said, "You need a DCO for Holly." And I, yes, I got to see it before anybody else did, because everybody else was asleep because they slept during the day, and I was on training, so I was working during the I'd have to do my sessions and my training and stuff during the day. So I saw the reject on Carrie's desk. And it said, you need a deputy CO for Holly, deputy commanding officer. And I went, yay. Anyhow, be careful what you wish for, because later. Anyhow, so when I did see him, he was standing outside my session window. Karen de la Carriere was doing my auditing steps. She was doing my grades, my expanded grades, my expanded Dianetics, and my Power and Power Plus. She did these things. And I got a lot of auditing because we were sailing, and John Horwich would get seasick and he couldn't tolerate it. And so I got his session time. So he scooted me right through all these grades. Yeah, it was fun.
That's great.
Then comes the 10-day cruise across the ocean, across the Atlantic. And
were you on the ship for the Madiera Rock Festival?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So there I am. I'm apprenticing in the Action Bureau, and all of a sudden I hear this thump, 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 and somebody's running through the between decks, and yelling. One of the messengers yelling, "Repel boarders, repel boarders." And I was like, "Whoa, what's that?" And John jumps up. I saw Mary Sue there too, by the way. Not that moment, but she came into the Action Bureau. She would make rounds on the ship and talk to people, and it was nice to meet her. And later on, I think she liked me because later on she protected me. Anyway, so this repel borders, and it's like it was Madiera, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It turns out there were these people on the docks screaming at us, "Go away, CIA! Go away, CIA!" They thought we were the CIA. And I go, wow, this is crazy. And during that time, we all went out there to do whatever it was we were going to have to be told to do. Hubbard came up on what deck would it be, Janice? It was on the
quarterdeck. Was it the A-deck quarterdeck?
Okay, it wasn't
the prom deck.
I was aft and above the
poop deck.
Okay, I was in that vicinity. And Hubbard came out on that other one across from me.
Yeah, the A-deck quarterdeck.
Yeah, and he hollers out, "Get the hoses out." Get the hoses. So they start hosing these people.
They're trying to come up. They're trying to come up the gangway, so they put the hose on.
Throwing rocks and things at the ship. And
then they throw motorbikes in the water and
them right
cars.
In the water, overboard into the water, off the docks. They threw them off the docks into the water.
Including Mary Sue's Mini Minor.
Her car, yeah.
Yep.
You got probably better visio on the details than I do of this, but I just remember being in awe. What the heck is going on here? What have I got myself into?
Welcome to Flag.
Yeah, no kidding. And and that was, do you remember the date of that, Janice? Do you know the date that happened?
No, I think it was October.
So that was fairly early on in my time on the ship, because I was there for 4 months and I left, I think it was December 7th.
Yeah, because I think it was October.
Yeah,
and all the musicians. The musicians were all on a 3-week leave of absence at the time.
Oh, okay. And maybe that's how I got sleep finally.
Yeah, they would have stopped. But the morning of the rock festival I was on Liberty that day, and I'd gone to the local gym to play basketball. And as I'm walking out, I see this group of men, and they're all talking, and I keep hearing Apollo amongst all these Portuguese words. And I'm like, oh, they must be talking about us. And I just go along my merry way and, go back to the ship and change. And then I go into town, and I do see taxis heading towards the dock at some point of my Liberty. And I didn't think anything of it. But what had been happening was they were saying we were CIA, and they were going to get rid of us, and they loaded up all these taxis with rocks and drove them down to the dock.
Oh my God. And I didn't know where they were getting the rocks from, but that's interesting. They loaded up with the rocks.
They loaded up the backs of the taxis with rocks and drove them down. And I was surprised that the dock guards even let these taxis through, and there was this one main instigator of the whole thing. But that evening, I'm with my friends, and we're going back to the ship, and we're met down at the dock guard entrance, and we're told that they're throwing rocks at the ship. Go up, everyone's going to meet up at the Sheridan. And then it's like, have you seen Mary Sue? And I'm like, no, but she was in town with Nikki and Diana. And they're like, they're looking for Mary Sue to get her up to the Sheridan and avoid the dock. And then Ellen and Wendell Reynolds were on Liberty, and they were actually being chased by people through the town, this mob of people chasing the two of them.
Oh my God.
It was insane. No, they didn't get hurt. No, but we all ended up, all of us that were on Liberty, we ended up at the top of the hill at the Sheridan, which overlooked the harbor.
Yeah.
And we had to act as if nothing was going on. And so we're there dancing away, and in between songs, you go over the window and you're looking out down at the ship. And at one point you see the ship lines are being taken off, and off goes the ship. And we're like at this nightclub, because even down below where you were, they kept trying to take the ship lines off.
Yeah.
And I remember one guy going down there and getting rocks thrown at him while he's trying to put the line back on. And then Kimma Douglas was standing next to Hubbard and actually got hit in the jaw, and it broke her jaw.
Yeah, I remember that.
And knocked her down.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that. That was a shock.
Yeah, and then they've got the hoses going on the locals as they're trying to come up the gangway. Yep. And there was a couple of other people that got hurt. And I remember Kerry telling me that he and Bill Franks were up forward, and one of them climbed aboard. One pushed him up, and then the other one had to pull the other one up so they could get on board and away from the rocks being thrown and the people. I mean, it was absolutely insane what was going on.
Yeah,
but the ship then goes out.
Definitely.
That
really beat the getting locked in the Heathrow airport. I'll tell you that one. I was like, whoa, what is this world?
And then Janice, they got the Apollo went out, right? It detached from the dock and went out into the bay.
Yeah, it went out to anchor out just outside the harbor. And so then when it was safe and there was no one left down on the dock, we all came down, and in turns, the sea sled would come back and forth and bringing us all back to the ship. And then there's more stories of what happened to the ship PR people, and I'm going to do a whole thing on this, and I will cover that later. I do.
And it's in your book, right, Janice?
Yes,
it's in your book.
I don't have the information on how that all went down, but
it's in book 2. But
book two? Hold on.
yeah, it's
I've
in
got
book
that.
2.
Hold on.
But I
Let me.
didn't experience that stuff. So
Right.
in terms of what I experienced was that moment, I just thought Hubbard was just brilliant to do that with the hoses.
Yeah.
You know, what else? We didn't have guns or something. We weren't going to defend ourselves that way. So it was kind of brilliant to hose them off like that and get them.
Well, let me put in a plug for Janice's book 2, Commoner's Messenger book 2, where she goes into great detail about this story, about the rock festival, as they call it.
I'll have to reread it.
There's photographs and all that. So if anybody on watching would like to order the book, it's available right down below. Just click on our merchandise store and you can get an autographed copy of the book from Janice if you're interested in it. And of course, you can buy book 1 as well, which is this one here. This is book 1.
Nice.
Anyway.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's move on, Holly.
Yeah.
So you were on the Atlantic crossing, right?
I was. I was never so, there's nothing like that. And have nothing in sight. No land, no birds, no anything in sight. That 10 days was probably the longest time of my life.
But what was amazing was how flat the ocean was.
It was. A lot of it was. Not the whole way, but when we reached the Sargasso Sea, if you've not been there, it is a phenomenon. There's a seaweed that is called sargassum, and it holds the water steady. So by the time we were in that area, there were the occasional swordfish. We would see that. But it was just totally flat, not moving. It was almost frightening. It was eerie to be. Yeah. All of a sudden, I realized how small that ship was. It seemed big until then. When it was attached to the dock or nearby or traveling from one place to another, it was one thing. But to get up on the upper deck where we went with Hoppy to do our Aikido training, that was fun. I still remember those lessons and use them in my mind. I use those concepts. Anyway, on the upper deck, you could look out for 360 degrees, nothing.
Right. Yeah. Just ocean, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
Yeah. And this was this, just so our viewers know, the Apollo was crossing the Atlantic, getting out of the Mediterranean once and for all, and was heading to the United States. And that was the crossing. And of course, that's a whole other story that's also in book 2. And eventually, instead, you guys ended up in the Caribbean, right, Janice?
Right. Yeah. Well, we stopped in Bermuda and then we were going to go into the U.S. and that's another story in itself. And we went down.
Well, for me, I made it as far as the Bahamas on that trip.
Okay.
And was sent back to assume my post in PAC from there. So I don't have I don't have those personal stories that go with that. But
that's okay.
I also remember, this stuff was stuff I had never seen. The Bermuda and the Bahamas, the watercolor, I couldn't believe it. It was like Fisher Price blue,
Yeah.
It was just beautiful, gorgeous. And I remember as just this young kid looking at it going, this is awesome. I've since, of course, been on cruises in the Caribbean. And it's beautiful. But the awe that I experienced as this young person.
I've been back to NASA, not Freeport, but to NASA, and it is so different from when we were there. Yeah, because Paradise Island was a paradise. It was just beaches, and now it's big hotels and
really
world type of place. But I remember just palm trees and coconuts and hammocks on Paradise Island.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. So then you got sent back from
after my training there.
Los Angeles, right?
Yeah. Then I'm in PAC for several years. And there it gets interesting and weird. I had a very good time at first. We had very good stats, such as they were. We're following the training that I received and the the setup between how Flag and the liaison offices and the orgs were to function together. And then things started to get a little rough, and I'm not really going to remember too many details, but suddenly it became necessary. We were cramped. We weren't allowed to talk to the orgs. We weren't allowed to talk to the EDs. Something happened somewhere, and I don't know what it was, but there were rules. You can only communicate to the orgs via the person who was called the flag
representative. Yeah.
A flag representative. And that person was sort of an overseer for flag. So each org had a flag rep who would report confidentially on whatever they observed, and their reports would go up their network channels, not to anybody else, just their network channels up to flag. And so, and then that evolved into, they became the people who would implement the programs. So we had that. And so the programs chiefs were talking to the flag reps and telexing them and pushing along how to complete the orders that they had in their programs for each org. So let's say, the org that we're talking about is Twin Cities. And I remember Leanne was the flag rep, and I would talk to the flag rep, and, the programs chiefs under me would talk to her. Well, things got just weird. Sometimes the EDs the executive directors would feel a bit lost. They needed to have somebody to talk to. They were having trouble. They didn't know what to do. They'd have a problem here or there. And so I had the bright idea to have the flag, I told the programs chief, have Leanne tell her ED to call me. And so I wasn't violating any rules. I wasn't calling the ED. He was calling me. And then I would just listen. What's the trouble? What's happening? Well, blah, blah, blah. And whatever it was going on. And I already had Leanne's information about what was going on. And then I would say, well, what policy applies to that situation? I seem to remember org exec course volume number such and so has policy about this that you're talking about. And, they'd find the relevant policy letter and say, oh, yeah, that's perfect. I did exactly what you said. And it all turned around and the stats would go up. And so this went on, that having a direct communication with the executive director, who then felt acknowledged, felt appreciated, felt whatever, and felt supported, our stats, I would say, they boomed according to the language we used to use. Yeah.
Right.
I was going to make an observation now that I'm 35 years removed from this whole situation, but you just mentioned the flag representatives, and you couldn't communicate as the commanding officer for Western United States to the executive directors of the different organizations, right? And I just thought about that. This is Hubbard putting in a totally bypass line of flag representatives who only reported to the Apollo. So they basically were keeping an eye on you and your managers and the executive directors. He didn't trust the managers to do the job. He had to have this other line that was reporting back and then running the other thing. And it's kind of like, and then later there was the LRH communicator network, the same thing. And it's almost like everybody cross-ordering everybody else, rather than just having a nice clean line of flag to the flag liaison office to the executive director, and let him do his thing, not having to constantly wonder, well, who am I supposed to listen to, right?
Right. Mark, you bring up an excellent part of the problem was too many orders, cross orders. The executive directors were like, leave me alone,
Right.
And that got even worse years later. Sometime later, it got worse. And I was sent back out there on garrison one time, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what they've done here. Okay, I should probably get into that before we run out of time, because those are pretty big moments. One was, so that was how I bypassed the system.
Right.
And that was helpful to the EDs. They needed somebody to support them. And just if for no other reason to have somebody to talk to. Flag even sent a mission one time, and I remember Horwich was the mission operator of this particular mission, and it was Jay Hurwitz, I think, was the missionaire who came to observe me. And they tape recorded me talking to the EDs, and it was said that I had perfect TRs. So, yeah, it was very important because long distance, there was an understanding that when you are talking to people long distance, which we don't have that anymore, because today we have video, but back in that day, you didn't have videos. You had just a telephone with a squawky line, or you had telexes, and making sure people are understanding what you're saying over a long distance line like that, where you can't visualize anything and you don't even know what the people you're talking to look like. It's difficult. And anyhow, so that became my successful action. And then to add to that and make it even more was, we didn't have any money, and the flag, what do they call them? The finance guys, which is where I did meet. You asked me about broker. I would have known him way back in the beginning as part of the flag
banking officer,
the finance bureau. He was an FBO.
The FBO, flag banking officer.
FBO officer, an FBO
Right.
officer. So I would have met him then, but he was then sent off somewhere, so I didn't remember him for long. Anyhow, coming back into this part of the story, so then it was, well, I want to see the orgs. I want to go look at them. And I think there had been, I don't know if it was Otto Roos or who it was, somebody had done something over in EU, in Europe.
In Europe.
They
Probably Captain Bill.
No.
Captain Bill. No?
No, it wasn't Captain Bill. It was somebody else. I'm not sure who now, but Janice, I may be wrong on that. I've got fuzzy memories on some of this. Whoever it was had visited the orgs, and I thought, well, I want to do that. I want to see these orgs that I'm talking to every day. I've got this whole swath of them, and I don't have any physical image of them.
Reality, yeah.
And so but we didn't have any money to fly me out there. So I'd have the orgs figure out how to fly me out there, and they would. So I was flown to the different orgs over time. I visited most of them. I could do the local.
You go to like St. Louis or Denver or San Francisco or whatever. You actually have a one-on-one FaceTime with the executive director. Yep. Very smart.
Yep. And that worked. And then I could tour. I could go around and do a executive inspection with them, and they were just pleased as punch to have somebody take that much interest. It was great. They loved it.
I didn't know that you were the originator of that. I mean, that then became standard operating procedure in all the continents. Years later,
complete originator. I think somebody over in EU did something like it, and I said,
"No, I know." But then you then carried on, and your statistics were great, and so they decided, "Hey, this is what we should do."
Well, no, because what actually happened is they decided that regardless of my statistics, I needed to be removed because they had to figure out what to do with Bill Robertson. And so what happened was they found one of the evaluators figured out a way to write up an evaluation on the West US and decide that I was a WHO or something. I had affluent stats across the board, 6-week trends, all the gross divisional statistics. It was, to tell you, I was shocked. And yet I knew, in a stroke of ESP, I told my secretary, my communicator, who's Jeff Prothero, I think was his name. I said, Jeff, mark my words, Thursday, 2 p.m., June 3rd, I will be removed from post. And he said, what? You're still
what year?
3rd of 1976. 1976.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, and that happened. So it gives me chills to remember this because it was prescient. It was just amazing. I'm sitting there and I told him, I felt it in my bones. I felt it in my bones. Something was wrong. The communication line to Flag was, something happened, whether it was less communication from them or whatever, I don't know. And the only other time I had something exactly like that was when Tom Lovely left with my daughter, and when she was only 4 years old, and took her out and took her up to New Hampshire. And that freaked me out. But that was
because he left on a leave, or he blew.
He left blue when Flag told him that he had to house himself and our daughter in a dorm. Tom and I were separated by then, and that he had to have Jennifer, 4-year-old little girl, sleeping with the men in the dorm. And Tom said, no.
Good for him.
And he took off. But I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know any of that until later. But so now I backtracked a couple of years, but when that happened, I had this weird sense. I had this vibration sense, and I know it sounds really corny, but I did. And Ingeborg Steinberg arrived. She was sent out on mission because she knew that, what was going to hit the fan when I found out about this. The instant she walked in to the dining hall downstairs in the Hollywood Inn, I said, what's wrong? Who's got my daughter where? And she was like, what? She had no idea that I would have any knowledge. She says, where is she? And I was furious. And she said, okay, calm down. We're working on it. Clint Bazot was the RPF person. And
right.
He was responsible. Maybe Tom was in the RPF. I don't know. But somehow Clint Bazot was responsible, or decided he was responsible for allowing this to happen. And so he got on the horn to me and assured me that, yes, we're working on it. We're going to get her back. And, Tom he wasn't crazy. And we were in touch with him fairly shortly after. By that time, I was married to Carl, and we had agreements with Tom that Jennifer could visit him, and she'd be with me, and we'd go back and forth. So Tom was not crazy, and but anyway, that happened, and that got straightened out, and we paid for Jennifer to come back to be with us in PAC. So back to a couple of years later, we're doing this. It's 1976, 3rd of June, 2 p.m. For those who don't know, Thursday, 2 p.m. was what was considered the end of the week, and everything was calculated against that. So if you're whatever you were measured by, your production was measured by, that was your statistics. And if those statistics were good, you were, in like Flynn. And if they weren't good, you're in trouble, you're in the doghouse, whatever. And mine were good. And management, to explain this a little further, it wasn't just week to week. Management operates on trends of multiple weeks. So Flag was supposed to manage with a view towards 6 weeks at least.
Right.
The CLO at the continental level was supposed to operate on a basis of like 3 weeks, and then the individual orgs, they could operate themselves on a week-to-week basis.
Right.
Boom. To have a bypass like this happen on 1 week was just a violation of everything management and even Hubbard had ever said. For all of Hubbard's own faults, this was something that was a complete violation, and he probably hit the roof, because 4 months later, and that was a harrowing experience. To be doing well, I had achieved rank, and I had achieved this award called Kakan status, which means you can explain it, Janice. I don't even know if I can. It was so bizarre that happened. And the evaluation that was done, it went all over the world, and it had my PC folder data in it. My counseling session information was in there, including, and it was altered, including that I was somehow involved in orgies, which never happened. but something
who did the do you remember who did the evaluation?
Well, yes, I do. Should I say? I don't know the person.
Yeah, sure. I don't. That's okay.
Larry Price.
Okay, I remember Larry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Larry Price did it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I suppose charitable would be to forgive everyone everything, and that's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was such an alteration of what was talked about. Peter Imbergia had some screwball ideas, and I didn't partake. And
Right.
and to then put in an evaluation on my organization that I was somehow involved in such things was, I was just in shock for quite a while afterwards, in shock. So I was removed, and Bill Robertson took over. Now, Bill Robertson had a history of being a big executive. He was a huge, burly guy.
Captain Bill
Robertson, big, tall guy, big chested guy, literally with the rank of captain, and he was an engineer. When he took over, what happened to me? Well, first of all, I was put in external comm, which was nice and safe. After I did lower conditions, I'm in external comm. And so I'm doing all the telex traffic back and forth, and I learned all the codes and all that stuff. That was kind of fun. It was nice to be off the lines.
Right. That stress.
Once I'm out of the ethics trouble that had me in, this is very hard to explain, but you two will know what I'm talking about, and some of the old timers will understand the phenomenon that happens when you are mishandled or you are given a wrong why or a wrong
reason.
Indication.
Yeah.
We had words for it that I've never learned how to translate into English. So forgive me, folks, but you're just not yourself when that happens. And so anyway, I get out of the ethics trouble, and I'm stumbling along, and I'm doing the telexes and whatever, and just quietly enjoying my disappearance. And somebody invites me to go to the beach. I lived in a basement. So I talk about white. I'm white, like
paper.
Right.
And when I go to the beach, I got burnt to a crisp. I come back, my face is swollen. It's beet red. I had to hide under a sheet when I realized I was burning, but it was too late. And then Irene Derman says, "Oh, here's what you do. You take a warm shower and let the heat out." I take a warm shower. I step out, and I collapsed on the floor, fainted dead away, cracked my head on the commode or the sink or whatever was in the room. And, like this. And wonderful Joan Robertson then takes care of me. And I get through it, but oh my God. I've had, since then, and I'm sure this is from that, I've had Mohs procedure done on a basal cell carcinoma that grew on my face because as an outgrowth of that, I have marks all over me from that sunburn. It was horrible. But anyway, I got through that. And then I'm 4 months into that, and I'm now on mission in Portland, and I get a telex, and Harwich is running me on the mission, and I'm sitting in the telex booth in the Portland Org, receiving and sending my telexes, and John sends me a telex that says, I start receiving a telex. No, it wasn't from John, it was from Hubbard. It says, and it has my previous name. It says, "Holly Lovely, you are to report to FOLO West US and resume your duties as you did them in May 1976. Boom. I went, whoa. And it signed, Love, Ron.
Right.
And so I telex to Horwich. I go, what should I do? Is this for real? He says, yeah, you better get down there quick. So I did. And I went back, and they had to figure out what to do with Bill Robertson and Joan. And they wrapped things up. And temporarily I was DCO for a few minutes or whatever. But then I found out what was going on while I was away. He had, instead of graphs, this is hard to explain to your folks. We used to graph all the stats. That you've explained this before somewhere?
No,
no, but it's okay. Yeah, we used to do graphs so you could read the stats and
all of the orgs had, we'd call them gross divisional statistics. And so there'd be your income and your student points and the
your well done auditing hours,
processing hours, and
value of services delivered.
Exactly.
Yeah, now it would be called analytics. Now.
Yes. Okay. Good. Call it that.
Analytics that analyzing.
Yeah.
Those would be evaluated every week, but they used to be on graphs, and so you could see ups and downs, and you could visualize trends, which is what we were supposed to be looking at, right? I mentioned those earlier. Well, Bill, bless his heart, as an engineer, he takes this graph paper, chart paper, the kind with the squares.
Yeah.
Right? And he says, no, we're going to color them in red and blue. Blocks.
Oh, instead of graphs.
I can't even visualize how that would work. I'm going, what are you guys doing? They were all busy on Thursday night coloring in squares, red and blue squares. I'm going, what are you doing? Well, it took a little while.
This is in the days before computers or anything like that. It was all
we had no computers for any of this.
All done by hand. Yeah.
All done by hand and by, I think we had maybe had some adding machines or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with a ruler and a red pen and a blue pen.
And a blue pen.
Exactly right. Red and blue pens. And oh my God. People, I have friends who've never heard of any of this stuff and want to know about it. And I go, well, I'll explain it later.
No, and it's
you
funny
do want to. I'm sorry.
Well, just to give a little bit more information. So like every Thursday at 2, an organization would send in all their statistics to the Flag Liaison Office, which would then send them all to Hubbard and Flag, right? And like you said, there would be what we called a stat evolution, where everybody was on all hands to graph with the red and blue pens and the rulers, all the statistics on paper, so that the trends could be read, so that you could then issue orders and manage the organizations. That's how it was done back then.
Yeah. Yep. So that took a little while to undo and get back to what was standard, normal. And so then, the next year rolls around, and by then I'm pregnant with our first son, and life started to be a bit rough, and we started to get a lot of intervention. It was very hard to recover from that. That was a real break in the flow of things that had gone well, and so the recovery just was choppy ever since. But they sent out a mission, and Mary Sue said, look, hat don't hit. So I got sent to Flag for a little retread training. And
Flag by this time was now in Clearwater.
Yeah, that's right. It had made its way to Clearwater. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And Mo was my programs chief then. So
Maureen Samuels. Yeah.
What's that?
I said Maureen Samuels, Mo. Yeah.
Yes. Whatever she was at the time, she had a few different surnames. For me, she'll always be Maureen Kennedy.
Yeah.
Because that's how I met her when she was one of our students. And she's the sweetest person on earth. But so and I was did some more apprenticing and whatever, and for a couple of weeks, I guess, and then I was sent back. But things were never got back, and then suddenly they decide they want Carl. Now, he had been running American St. Hilda. Well, I don't know why they suddenly decide they want him at Flag, and they're going to make him a tech sec. So.
Technical secretary of the Flag Service Org, which was the delivery organization in Clearwater, delivering auditing and training. Anyway, go ahead.
Right.
So we get shipped to Flag. Well, they wanted him. I mean, I think I went along as baggage, and then I had another baby to go with. So I had the daughter and our son. And so we drove 1 week after Dustin was born. We drive to Detroit and to visit Carl's folks. And we drive to Western New York to visit my folks. And then we head down to Flag. And I think I had two brothers that came, I don't know if it was just the one or both, came with and helped do the driving because I was busy dealing with the children. And so then we get to Flag, and I'm put under Horowitz as mission ops again. And Carl goes, and he's tech sec. And there, you may be wanting to wrap up because there's another whole large chapter to do.
Yeah, no, I was going to say this is a good point for us. We're an hour and 10 minutes. A good point for us to wrap up because now you're from West US and you're gone to Flag. And I just was going to say when you were a mission ops in Flag and Carl was, the technical. So that's when I first saw you and met you and all that during that time period. But we'll carry on the next one talking about Clearwater because there's still a lot more to go with Holly's story. This has been really interesting though, Holly, and I think you've given a lot of clarity, to how Scientology is managed.
For me, I feel like anybody new hearing this it's a bit of a jumble, but maybe I'll write in the comments clarifications. If people have questions, I'm happy to try to fill in.
Yeah. Well, I remember, Holly, in the end of 76, when you went back on as the CEO of Follow West US. I remember I was there. LRH was just setting up La Quinta, and I'd been over at the Manor doing comm runs, telexes, in the Guardian's office, external comm for Hubbard.
Yeah.
And then we were moved from there down to the Follow basement and worked with Glenn Ballantyne and used your guys' stuff. And I remember every Thursday afternoon, my mother and Carl and
I didn't talk about the CO conferences, the whatever we called them.
We'll do that on the next.
Oh my God! Yes, we did those every week. Those were really
every week because I remember I'd wait because it was my chance to at least see my mother and say hello. Was when she would come over for your meetings.
Well, those meetings they became a pattern for all the other continents. Yep. It was a successful action that they then copied what we were doing, and they did it in the other continents.
Yeah, and I just to blow Holly's horn a little bit, these were all things that she originated that became very successful standing operating procedures in other continents. Because one thing that, to Hubbard's credit, is if something was working, he wanted everybody else to do the same thing. You know what I mean? So if it was working, he'd find out what it was, and then he'd tell the CEO of East US and Europe, hey, you need to do the same thing. And Holly originated a lot of this stuff.
That's very kind. That's very kind of you, Mark. Let me put a PS on this whole episode here. It's somewhat bittersweet because there are the fun aspects of it and the positives of it, but then there's the knowledge of what a sham it all really was. And that's really hard. I mean, if I had known then what I know now, it's almost like a game, like a dream or something that we were all playing, we were all part of, and it was all this fun, seeming fun. Some of it was horrific, but some of it was actually fun. And I appreciate those acknowledgements.
Well, I was going to say, you were only 20.
Also a lot of time trying to make amends.
No, I totally understand. All I'm trying to say is that, you started as a teenager, and by the time you were 20-something years old, you're running all of Western United States. It'd be the same thing if you were put in charge of a corporation to run all of the Western Division or whatever, and you had no education, right, other than just the schooling you had up to the point you got Scientology. And Janice is the same thing. All of her education, she didn't even finish junior high, you know what I mean? And yet she not only was successful in Scientology, but then leaving Scientology, as well as you guys have both been very successful afterwards as well. So I think it's a tribute to you and your skills as a person, not necessarily I'm saying the Scientology part of it, but just you as a person and Janice as a person. You had an innate ability and a smartness to be able to figure things out and get things done.
Well, you're too kind. Thank you very much. Yeah,
I'm just stating what my observation of it was, but anyway, I just wanted to.
Well, you're no slouch yourself there, Mark.
Well, and we weren't stupid people, you know what I mean? I mean, we may have gotten involved in a cult. I was a teenager, you were a teenager, Janice was a kid, but we were smart people too, and we eventually left, which we'll get to, you know what I mean? Because we were smart enough to see the writing on the wall.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, very nice, very kind.
Okay, well, we're going to end off here. I want to thank you, Holly, again for being here.
Yes,
I'm really enjoying these interviews with you because I relate.
It's good to maybe get some closure on a major.
Yeah, and I relate to a lot of the things that you're talking to because I also was in management, and we're talking about things that most people don't really know about. But it's fun to talk about, for us, and hopefully people get a better understanding. Anyway, I'll go ahead and do our business.
For anybody that's got questions, throw them in there and I'll see what I can, I don't want to leave you all stumped on what we're talking about.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you have questions, ask in the comment section down below. We will get them back and answer them in the next video that we do with Holly. And then, of course, please subscribe to our channel. Janice likes you to rock slam that like button because it helps us get our message out to people. So please subscribe, rock slam it. Okay. And then also, if you want to support our channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a donate. You can donate to our channel through Buy Us a Coffee. There's a link down below. Click on it, and we appreciate any support. I also wanted to mention, too, you can be a member of our channel as well. All you have to do is click on the join button on your PC or laptop right next to the subscribe button, and there's a video that explains the different membership levels for our channel, and that's also another way that you can support us, help us to continue to get these stories out to everybody, and hopefully bring closure to people that were involved in Scientology and that type of thing. Anyway, thank you, Holly, for being here. We really appreciate it. Janice, have you got anything you want to say?
Thanks.
I love having Holly on, and I know our next episode is going to be even better.
Oh yeah,
it'll be harder. I'll tell you.
Stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. There's more to come.
All right.
All right, everybody. Until the next time, we want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay.